appreciated, and they're making things happen, and I do appreciate it. I've been involved with him and his staff on Powder Springs and Lake Pop, on Silver Springs, on various things here in Lake County as well, not to mention Lake Pop. But I find it refreshing to be able to pick up the phone and get the level of professionalism that your team is exhibiting, and please convey our thanks to them as well.
We will do that. I appreciate those comments, Senator, and it's been a pleasure working with you on the pocket issues, and I look forward to continuing to do that.
So people do. Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Chairman. Lake County, as you know, is very unique. We have over 1,400 names in Lake County. We do have a very active Lake County Water Authority, and I noticed, of course, I'm well aware of the partnership that you all had with the Lake County Water Authority and the nuclear reduction facility, which I use that as an example. But in the other 17 counties of the St. John's jurisdiction, who do you partner with in those counties when they don't have a water authority? Who is the engaged party like our water authority is here?
Lake County is unique in that it has a water authority. Other counties, one county, for instance, has their environmental protection division, which has an arm that deals with these issues. We work with Orange County on their cooperative sharing aspects as well. Most counties have some arm that we can partner with on a regular basis on these types of things. We do, right now we're coming out soon with our next round of cooperative sharing, which is a large program that allows us to go and assist counties, other municipalities with some of these projects that we've heard about tonight, some of these reuse projects that are out there, some of these spring protection projects where perhaps the municipality can't afford to do the project themselves. We are able to come in, meet the criteria, provide anywhere from, I think it's 30 to 50% of the funding for those projects. And it allows us to continue to work on other projects that aren't necessarily just on our radar, and focus in on what each of the different communities has, and try to get the most bang for the buck out of water resource protection, water supply initiatives in those different areas.
Do each of the other 17 counties that you work with have a soil and water conservation district as well?
I believe so.
And do you notice differences in those districts as far as what they're able to do because of resources and staffing and so forth?
I haven't gotten that far into the weeds at each county level, unfortunately. I am based in Orlando, and I do spend most of my time in the southern part of the district, and I've only been here for 2 months now. So I am working my way through the process, and I do intend to find more out about that. But the cooperative sharing program is a big deal. It's a program I really like. Like I said, it allows some of the smaller municipalities that have a good idea for a good reuse program, but there's no way they're really going to really fund it for us to come in and help them get that done. And I think we invested $23 million last year in the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your presentation, and the fact that you took the time to come up here yourself.
No problem. We're going to show you here, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up we'll hear from Commissioner Parks. So we have Jimmy Connor listed on that agenda, but we made a change on that after it was printed. So Commissioner Parks, if you would like to come forward. So Mr. Heath, if you want to have him there as well, it's up to you.
No, and Representative Metz, I think we covered it. That's not what I wanted to. We covered everything beforehand. But I would, if I did have the opportunity, would like to thank Chairman Nicholas, because St. John Task Health is somebody I neglected to thank in my comments. So they've been very helpful. So I do want to point that out as well. Again, I'll make myself available for any questions, but we're ready to go with the application and helping move things forward. So.
Okay. Now, that was on the South Lake Water Initiative earlier.
On the South Lake Water Initiative.
This is the county's role in relationship with the other entities that we have. And I could ask you a question, maybe to kick it off, and then maybe we'll see what else we have on this. But in the submission that we got from the county manager's office, we were given copies of the Lake County Land Development Regulations. There's very specific pollution criteria in there that you all have. I mean, it actually describes the pollution type agents that could be found and the levels that are acceptable and so forth. what do you have in terms of staffing and resources to actually ensure that your pollution standards are complied with at the county level? Or do you rely on the St. John's or other entities for that?
Well, and Dave, if you'd like to come up and speak to the degree of what our staff is available.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, let me give you the short answer. We don't have, we've had reductions in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of, 70 or more employees, and those staff cuts have been, our team members that have been part of part of our development review that would be in charge of enforcing that. So, but there is this, we're different than Orange County. We point this out, that we don't have a separate EDC department that enforces the state wetland rules and some of those guidelines. We don't have that. That clearly is turned over, and St. John's enforces that, the Water Management District, or DEP. So, depending upon whose jurisdiction, what jurisdiction is, how it applies to an application that comes in. So, and our staff essentially just follows up and ensures that they have those permits. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. East, do you have anything? Okay, very well. That's pretty much what I had on the county's involvement.
I apologize too. I didn't. Chairman Khan definitely owes me one. So, but because I did not see that handout. So,
okay, well,
we also have, of course, the stormwater department as well. That we have stormwater projects that are funded, to a very limited extent, I believe.
Well, and you and I have had an ongoing dialogue on these issues, and we'll continue to do that individually. But so my question, or where I'm heading with the question, is simply, I see the county is taking the effort to pass ordinances that actually prohibit pollution and state what the acceptable levels are, whatever agent might be, like arsenic, for example.
Right.
And yet I see all the other submissions from the other agencies, and it seems like they have all the power and the resources on water regulations, but you're defining what the standards are. So it's like there's a decoupling of the standards of pollution and water regulatory authority and budget, it seems. So we could talk about that in the future.
Absolutely.
To know more about how you get your job done. If the county commission is actually passing the standards, but others have the responsibility for water quality assurance, and how does that work exactly? Is there a defect in that system that we need to know about, or in terms of state law or jurisdiction, or is it something you all could just address? So not the answer now.
Yeah, no, I just generally speaking, we try to follow we have to, of course, what the state standards are. And so certainly Commissioner Campion, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we, right now, at least, are in the business of creating our own additional regulations that are in excess of what the state has.
Right.
So, because quite frankly, even if we wanted to, our staff is limited to enforce that. And that's the difference in what Orange County has that I referenced earlier. So, they have more extensive staff.
Well, we'll keep the dialogue going. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure.
Oh, yes, Senator Hinkle.
Thank you very much. This may be different in Lake County, but what role do the cities play within their own jurisdiction in terms of permitting and regulation, how they would do, in other counties? Because we're talking about the counties, the jurisdictions may be different within the city.
I can't speak for all the cities, but I know that the cities, generally speaking, follow, in Lake County, the ones that I know about, follow state standards. I don't know of any cities off the top of my head right now that have something in addition that they have on their code of ordinances. Maybe for other issues they do. It could be noise, and I'm just kind of speaking from a planner's perspective. Yeah. They have some that are more stringent than the county. Others aren't.
Let me just follow. It may not be a really question to you, but for instance, let's say you're permitting a subdivision, and there's a retention pond in the subdivision. And you're going to have some kind of agreement that's imposed upon the developer in the city and St. John's or county and St. John's. And I'm assuming it was in the city limits, that it would be the county that would be enforcing that. That it probably would be the city and St. John's together, maybe St. John's.
It would be with who the actual permit is with, which would be St. John's. If residential neighborhood, any kind of project that has to be platted or split out, it's going to usually be St. John's River Water Management District in our case, or it could be DEP if it's a single family type project. So the cities would, yeah, they would have to have, they could issue, the cities and the county can issue a zoning permit and then, or a conditional use permit, building permits, but the water management or DEP then in turn would issue the water permits, so permits that impact the wetlands. We don't, the county and the cities that I know of don't have any additional regulations on top of that. So, and if there's an easement or something that's required, that's enforcement through, and who the easement's dedicated to, which is usually water management or DEP or another agency, state agency, that's followed up. You know, those agencies would follow up with enforcing that. So, did I answer your question?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, if you're not prepared to answer this, since you haven't seen the document, you can certainly yield it, but I can't even answer it. I notice here under 6.12.00, central water system and central sewage system, like over in H having to do with the central sewer systems in the Wekiva River protection, there's about 3 or 4 paragraphs there that are gray in our copy here. I don't know if that was something that y'all have highlighted or if you, if it's gray, meaning that you blacked it out, is it no longer effective, or what's the story there?
I don't, it's something that was highlighted for some reason.
That's what it appears.
It was just highlighted, I guess, for interest. And I apologize, I was not prepared for that.
That's okay.
Commissioner Connor really owes me one.
I'll get that. Between you and me both, we'll hang him out to dry.
We'll get it.
We also thank you for the opportunity to do that now.
Jimmy's a big boy, he can take care of himself. But no, we appreciate you being here to try to pinch hit anyhow.
Sure, and again, if you have any questions, I hope I was answering your questions at least mostly. Again, the difference is that we're not too different than the state. I mean, the rest of the state.
Well, that area out there is certainly a sensitive area, and we've got to try to find the sweet spot on how we're going to handle those situations. We want to make sure we do it based on science instead of hyperbole.
Absolutely. That's the only way to make sound policy decisions. Take the emotion out, especially when you're talking about water. Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Parks, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next presenter. Thank you. Which is the Lake County Water Authority. And we're going to hear from Mike Perry again, Executive Director. We have the PowerPoint copy here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to be much briefer than I was earlier, and just I wanted to hit the highlights of the kind of things we do, and I think the expectation was we were to describe the things we do makes it different than the other entities and how we meet our mission. And with that, the Water Authority was created back in 1953, originally called Alcohol Basin Recreation and Water Conservation and Control Authority. Take 2 business cards and put all that together. In 2000, the legislature officially changed the name to the Water Authority. We went from a 3-member appointed board to a 7-member elected board, and that's really paid a lot of dividends. I think it's made the decision-making, all the discussions a little bit longer, and the meetings take a little bit more. I think we get a better product out of it from the 7 members. The legislature also provided us with a series of specific purposes. We're to control and serve the freshwater resources of the county, foster and improve tourist business by improving streams, lakes, and canals, which was to provide recreational facilities, provide more efficient use, preserve and protect and improve fish and wildlife, and improve and protect freshwater resources through assisting local governments with stormwater runoff. So those are the kind of things that we have. What we are not is we're not a utility company. We get calls every day asking, are we, how do we, can you come over and hook up water to our house? And that's not what we do at all. We have no permitting or enforcement authority, even though our enabling legislation will allow us to have some. If we choose to, we felt that it would be unnecessary for us to be in the regulatory business. It's always covered by other entities. We have a pretty small staff. We operate with only 14 to 15, working at about 15 people, half being part-time, part-time, 5-10 days. So we have a fairly small staff. Our money comes through cooperative ventures with either the water management district, local governments, legislature, or we have a small village that we can levy and do every year as well. Everybody else has talked about partnering, and it's a pretty significant effort that really allows us to share those costs and to we get more done through a unified effort. And we're also able to make sure that we don't duplicate or try to do something that other agencies are already doing. There is no harder thing to get than public money, and we certainly don't want to be redundant, and most of all, we certainly don't want to create the Department of Redundancy department anyway. So we are working hard to make sure that we are very specific in the things that we do. With that being said, let me get into some of the things that we actually are doing that makes us a little bit different and unique. For example, we created the Hickory Point Recreation, built the Hickory Point Recreation Facility back in 1992. The Board of County Commissioners really didn't begin to develop regional parks until 2007. So we felt that we were able to get going on other things because they're a little bit more uniquely sized. We created a GIS system for the county starting in 1992. BCC really didn't start their program until 1996. So we were filling that niche at the time when those didn't occur. And also we began an environmentally sensitive land acquisition program back in 1988. The Board of County Commissioners really didn't start theirs until 2005. So we were meeting that need at that time. Now, since the county commission really exists, that we're sort of out of the land acquisition business. Our board, for the most part, has said until the lakes aren't green anymore, we're not going to buy another acre of land. So they're really able to shift their focus and be able to do the things that they want to do within their mission, and let others that are able to do it get on and do it. Many of the agencies, or all the agencies, I think, we're again careful not to duplicate or overlap. For example, we maintain navigability, navigational aids, speed zone signs within the lakes and in the major chains of lakes and system where no one else does that. District doesn't. Isn't involved in navigation. The BCC is not. We do that alone. We have taken on the responsibility to remove down trees that block navigation. No one else in the county does. We take that on. It's not I don't think it's a designated requirement or responsibility, but we thought that was important enough for us to do, and those are the kind of things we do. We've removed accumulated sediment that restricts navigation between lakes, bigger lakes and smaller lakes as well, that are all have public access, and the district, again, doesn't have navigation in their purposes. The county hasn't done it either. We mostly have to do that. From a dredging perspective, we took out a little more than 1 million cubic yards of sediment out of Lake Eau Claire primarily for a navigation improvement or remove a impediment to navigation. Also, water quality problem, primarily was to allow the boats access through there. We've completed a project to provide access from residential canals to Lake Griffin as part of allow to facilitate the implementation of a revised fluctuation schedule. That wouldn't have happened unless we took that on. And finally, we on occasion funded for the construction improvements of public boat ramps. This is Marsh Park, which is the way we did this a few years ago. It's likely to maybe do this one again. But I guess I wanted to reemphasize that the district doesn't have view maintaining navigation as part of its purpose, and the Board of County Commission at this point has taken no role into the maintaining navigability. We've pretty much been taking that We talked about stormwater a little bit, the district has, and the county has too. We provide some matching funds for water quality improvement, stormwater projects, and we are able to assist other local governments, not just, the county has their money specifically for their projects. They don't go to the local governments. We've been working with City of Eustis and others to get projects going in their communities to meet that stormwater problem, those stormwater problems. And we're able to work through all the communities, not just focused on specifically Lake County. And while the county has a stormwater program, a lot of the funds lately have been used for drainage projects, parks and trails, or something maybe non-water quality related. So we've stepped up to try to ensure that all gets addressed as well. And that the district, we heard that they provide some money. They're going to spread all of their money out through all of their 19 counties. All of the money that's generated in Lake County stays in Lake County. It's from Lake County taxpayers or brought to Lake County, stays in Lake County. The Water Management District, we heard that they operate the structures on the Harris Chamber. They do that for flood protection. There's also some structures on the Platte River that the Water Authority built and really designed at the time to hold water back into the system, to be able to provide water to irrigate groves, particularly during the winter time for freeze protection. And there's about 6 of those structures out there. They're not flood control, they're water control either. It's designed to hold water in. We can provide a little bit of flood protection, but it's like you have to create a series of cascading pools in order to kind of move water uphill a little bit. So they're really not for flood protection, but they really need to be maintained and provided for environmental damage, to prevent any environmental damage or loss of property values. And again, the water can be moved through a series of cascading pools. Neither the county nor the district has any role in maintenance and operation of these structures. They're all ours. We were able to address a significant cyanobacteria or blue-green algae bloom issue in the Harris Chain about 10 years ago. If you recall that the lakes just turned green and it became a very popular item in the media that how the lakes are being poisoned, they're going to die, all the fish are going to die, it's going to be horrible. So nobody was really had any scientific information or any data about these cells. We were able to mobilize quickly and do a significant monitoring effort to determine that how much the density of the cells, was there any toxins associated with it, a variety of things. We were able to after a 3-year period, we now have the longest duration, most robust data set of its kind for cyanobacteria. So that's something we were able to get to quickly that would have otherwise been undone. Both the county and the district have communication staff. We do a little bit of education as well in communication, but something we do that no one else does, we actually created a Teachers Institute that we're able to help school teachers learn about water resource issues so they can take that back to the classroom. We do it on a once in a while basis whenever the topic is necessary or teachers have the time to do that kind of thing. But it was something that we feel it makes us a little bit different and unique. The local media representatives really looked at us as the local voice for water resource issues and water topics. Unless there's something that the district can handle or it's their responsibility, they look really to us to try to help them out with other specific topics. And the citizens really look to us to provide information on everything from maneuvering state bureaucracy to helping with context for permitting, or we talk about water levels all the time and try to share as much information with students and families and neighbors and voters as we can. And because we're a local entity, we live here, we on the lakes all the time, we feel like we're a pretty good resource for them. We're also the only agency or the only entity in the county other than the sheriff that actually provides recreational voters information and a safety program. We help fund the Sheriff's Marine Unit with a couple extra deputies to make sure that they can get out there and make sure people are safe and complying with all the laws. I don't think the sheriff would have nearly the effectiveness without a couple of deputies. And probably the last thing I wanted to talk about is that I think the water authority really advances projects that would otherwise be neglected by lack of either resources or local interest. For example, this is our nutrient reduction facility here in Earth, which captures water from Lake Apopka, diverts it through an offline analysis system, rather, it creates a block, and then you get pretty much crystal clear clean water coming out the other side of it. That it really fills a gap in that whole TMDL issue, because the district's goal for Lake Apopka was about 55 parts per billion. The state tells us we need to get 32 parts per billion of phosphorus coming into the Harris chain. So even if the district never did meet their goal, it's still a lot more needs to be done. But it leaves our facility, it's a 32, at least it was when we were operating, 32 parts per billion of phosphorus. So we were meeting those goals that would otherwise may not have been met. Dredging, we discussed the Beauclair project a little bit, again, because navigation is outside of the district's responsibilities or their interests or scopes of work, that this would have never been accomplished if we weren't able to get on it and do it. And then finally, we also mentioned dredging Lake Griffin, that unfortunately the district couldn't proceed with their enhanced fluctuation aimed at environmental restoration if we never stepped in and were willing to do that. So I think we provide significant value to the community, and also I believe we're responsible to the taxpayers. The board has worked since it became elected to use their village right around 50% since they became an elected board. So we're doing all the things that we're doing and able to do with less money. And so I think that we provide a pretty decent value. I guess in summary, just wanted to make sure that you all knew that we feel like we implement projects that are consistent with our legislative charge and our legislative responsibility. We do coordinate and communicate with other state agencies, and as much as it sounds like it's one big group hug between the agencies, there are times when we don't see quite eye to eye, and there are times when we have to scrap with our brother, and we have, and we do it. And it's mostly because we feel like we are protecting our local interests, and we try to maintain a very vigilant focus on activities in Lake County and anything affecting the water resources of Lake County. And again, I think I wanted to make sure that the board, or that you all knew that the board is very, very responsive to the taxpayers and have challenged me to do more with less. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
I have a question for you, Mr. Curry. The enabling law, that your charter, if you will, was reenacted in 2005, chapter 2005-314. Has that been looked at lately by anyone in your organization as far as updating it? Or?
No, the last time we did it back, we've got that codification effort. I guess there were pieces scattered all over.
Yes.
Basically, kind of came up with
was it rewritten at that time, or was it just put together?
It was tinkered with slightly. I don't recall exactly the significant differences, but there was a little bit of things that we were. It may have had to do with law enforcement, for example. I think at one time we could do law enforcement. Now I believe it was taken out of the law at that time, and that's why we looked at the sheriff to do that. And there might have been a couple other topics, but I don't recall.
Well, when I read it again, I mean, it's very broad and lots of power in here. It's amazing how much latitude the drafter gave the water authority. I mean, you actually have the right to take state land. You can actually identify land owned by the state of Florida, go out and say, it's not being used for a state purpose, we think we should take it, give them notification, and according to this law, it would be your land after that. I mean, it's just...
We actually tried it once. It was more of a threat, but
I mean, I've heard the government taking property, but usually there's just compensation involved too. In this case, it's just written very broadly, so I was just wondering if that was newer language, or is that antiquated language from the 50s?
Yeah, it's out of pretty much the same language foundation is really on.
All right. And now you mentioned you're very polite. I didn't miss it, but it was easy to miss about how sometimes you get into. It's not always a group hug, and there's sometimes arguments with your brethren. I don't want to dwell on that, but I want to say some of the functions that we're going to hear about in a moment from the Harris Chain and from the Soil and Water Conservation District. I want to plant a seed with you, and then maybe come back to you with a question or two later. But one threshold question I have when I was reading materials is restoring the Harris Chain. Obviously, that's a very important goal for the people of Lake County. The lakes are in terrible shape. They've come back somewhat. They're not there yet. But my question, it doesn't need you to answer it now, is, isn't that something the Lake County Water Authority would be primarily responsible for as this law that I mentioned was drafted? And what is the role, just think about the role of the Harris Chain of Lake Restoration Council in that context, like their relationship to the St. John's. If they're created to, we're going to hear from Vice Chair Gerner in a second, but if that council is created to advise St. John's on restoration of the Harris Chain, where does that leave Lake County Water Authority in that whole mix? It seems like that's fragmented somewhat, when it should be something we can handle, more or less, or less fragmented, I should say. So I just want to plant that with you, and then we're going to, unless there's other questions here, we'll move on to the next presenter, which I believe is Ms. Farner from Soil and Water Conservation District. Thank you. Chair Farner, would you like to come forward? And I do want to thank everybody, by the way, not only for their presentations as we've heard them, but the written submissions were excellent. Everybody really took the request seriously and gave us really good written information, backup documentation, and it really does help answer a lot of the questions that I had before we sent it out. Farner, you're recognized. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, delegation members. Nice to be here. So the Lake Soil and Water Conservation District is managed by an elected 5-member nonpartisan board of supervisors who volunteer their services. Soil and Water Conservation Districts are non-taxing and non-regulatory special districts. This is our vision and our mission. We realize how valuable our soil and water resources are, and we strive to conserve and improve them. Okay, a little history of soil and water conservation districts. Conservation districts have played an important role in conserving the nation's natural resources since the dust storms of the 1930s. They called them the dirty 30s. The drought and erosion of Dust Bowl affected 100 million acres that centered mainly on Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas, and even extended to the panhandle of Texas. Because of the lack of vegetation in their root systems, the soil absorbed the dust. Many severe dust storms blackened the sky for days, known as the black blizzards or black rollers. At that time, the U.S. Congress passed legislation declaring soil and water conservation a national policy and priority. President Franklin D. Roosevelt urged the states to create legislation enabling landowners to form soil conservation districts. There are nearly 3,000 conservation districts nationwide. Here are some pictures. The top one is from the 1930s. Agricultural damage coupled with drought and windstorms resulted in severe damage and destruction across the plain states that became known as the Dust Bowl. And the bottom picture is a modern-day dust storm happening in Kansas. Erosion is a serious concern during a drought. Precious topsoil is blown away by winds due to the lack of stabilizing foliage. And if topsoil is to occur naturally, it takes about 500 years for it to be able to occur naturally. So it is a big concern. The Lake Soil and Water Conservation District works alongside with the Natural Resources Conservation Service to provide grant money. They're really like cost share programs to help private landowners or farms and ranches to promote agricultural production and environmental quality. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, alongside our staff, help these landowners identify the appropriate conservation practice or practices to address the resource concerns. The Local Conservation District, which would be our Lake Soil Water Conservation District, along with us, we then approve the plan. And once the plan is approved, incentive payments may be provided up to 3 years to encourage producers to carry out management practices they may not otherwise use without the incentive. If you take a look at the last bullet, that's a key point regarding the mobile irrigation lab. This is what brings in the most funding to the Lake Soil and Water Conservation District and is tremendously important community outreach awareness facility, which enables us to bring in more grant money. Our mobile irrigation lab currently serves the agricultural community by visiting groves, nurseries, and greenhouses. Lab personnel visit the site. They conduct a visual survey of the irrigation system in place, including assessment of the piping, irrigation heads, they look at the pumps and all the other components of the system. Then they conduct a series of measurements of water pressure and water flow at various sampling points around the site to determine if any problems exist, and then to localize them. All this data is then input into a spreadsheet which identifies problem areas and deficiencies in the system. With this data in hand, personnel provide a report back to the grower identifying deficiencies and making recommendations for improvements based on the data and their visual inspection. When the improvements are made, and sometimes this could take 6 months because if they're working with a cost share program, they have to make up, half of the cost, and sometimes it takes them a while to get everything together. But when the improvements are made, staff will return to the site to conduct a follow-up inspection. And then this is when they'll get new data collected, and it always shows a great conservation in water. Since the program began in the fall of 2006, our mobile irrigation program, the lab team has evaluated more than 1,900 acres. Now notice, that's not a lot of acreage, but I want you to look at how many gallons of water per year are saved. The program offers a professional, unbiased evaluation of the growers' irrigation equipment, methods of water use, and to help them save water, efficiently operate their system, and optimize the production of their crop. This program is our primary outreach because whenever our lab personnel go out there and they talk to them, they say, you realize that there are cost share programs that you can get to help improve. And then this is what brings the money in. Improvements in irrigation usage can have unanticipated benefits to growers when they realize running their diesel or electric pumps less can save them significant amounts of fuel and energy costs. The lab is currently funded by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and the Natural Resources Conservation Service of the U.S. Department of Ag. And some things to think about. And I know we've all seen this, and maybe we may have been guilty of doing this before. Are we really conserving water? Because we really need to start conserving water yesterday. We have a duty and an obligation to ensure our natural resources are not wasted. Can't we come up with a sensor? We have so many sensing devices like moisture sensors. There's got to be a sensor that we could put around irrigation systems that can sense if there is rain coming down. The operation of your irrigation system will not go on. And then also, too many times we've all read of our aquifer and how it will no longer be sustainable to support growth and development in our state. These calculations are most likely based on current water consumption patterns, and these patterns have to be changed. Water consumption must be considered the serious reality that it is. This can only be accomplished with your help. The Lake Soil and Water Conservation District will play its part in this evolving problem. This is real and has to be dealt with if future growth and development goals are to be achieved. And this is the United States Geological Survey map, and Lake County is right in here. We're mostly blue. And what the map says in the blue is our limestone thickness can be varied anywhere from 30 to 200 feet thick, consists mainly of cohesive clay sediment of low permeability. Sinkholes are most numerous, of varying size, and develop abruptly. Upper cleft sinkholes dominate. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, which I spoke about a few slides ago, they are a service that is provided by the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, and soil and water conservation districts throughout the United States have a long-standing partnership with this entity. They help us ensure that local conservation concerns are met with a national conservation effort. We work closely together to serve Lake County's natural resources, primarily by connecting growers with the NRCS staff and to assist them in qualifying for federal cost share funding. Through budget and staff cuts, however, we have lost 2 employees. The reduced assistance to the NRCS has reduced the amount of federal money that Lake Soil and Water Conservation District has been able to bring in to our county. If you'll take a look at the bottom of that slide, at the bold font, in a 2-year period of time, money spent on the salary for our secretary bookkeeper by the county, Lake County government, in 2 years' salary, this is 2 years, $111,822, and then look at the return that we got from the Natural Resource Conservation Service. This is a 773% return investment with the county. And then thinking about what could happen, some of us have been here in the severe droughts that we've had in the late 90s. And then I look at what happened 2 weeks ago in California, and just a week ago tomorrow, Governor Brown had declared a drought emergency for the state, saying it's facing perhaps the worst drought that California has ever seen since records began about 100 years ago. There had to be a declaration made by the governor calling for a 20% conservation of the water used statewide. Conserving soil and water is very important, and going through a very severe drought, when we don't conserve water, that's a factor a lot of times in the drought. He also had said 2 other points in life. It's important to wake all Californians to the serious matter of the drought and lack of rain, that people should pause and reflect on how dependent we are on the rain, nature, and one another. Even their snowpack in the mountains that they depended on is 20% of what it usually is. So our overuse of water is a definite factor involved in drought. More pictures. Now this is Central Florida in the late 90s. And it's like what Mr. Perry was saying. We have rain-driven lakes. If we don't have rain, we're not going to have our lake levels up. Then we won't have groundwater in our aquifers. These images show you the effects of what happens to us when we have severe drought. And since then, our population has increased and our tourism has increased significantly. We need to start conserving Florida's water now. Okay, now this is the answer to some of the things provided in the packet that we have given you. Our relationship with the Lake County Water Authority, they grant us the use of Hickory Point Recreational Facility for our annual Lake Regional and Fire Pond, and they participate as a partner by providing station representatives to administer the test for the aquatic section of the contest. There really isn't a working relationship with the Heritage Chain of Lakes Restoration Council, but they do nice work too. And our relationship with Lake County government, well, the Lake County Board of County Commissioners provide salary, benefits, and office space for 1 key employee to assist the Board of Supervisors. They support 2 grant-funded mobile irrigation lab technicians as county employees by providing an invoice to reimburse by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. They provide a vehicle and trailer for the mobile irrigation lab. The fuel, repairs, maintenance, and are all reimbursed by the FDAC, which is the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Board members are advertised and news releases, or board meetings, are advertised and news releases are posted and sent by Lake County government, and also board meetings as well as annual events are held at the Lake County Agricultural Center. Then our working relationship with St. John's River Water Management District. There is no current relationship, however, in the past, they did help fund the mobile irrigation lab just until like the recent past. And then they have also given us literature to distribute. Our sources of funding, our conservation district gets funding from the Lake County Commissioners for 1 employee, and the other 2 staff members' salaries are paid with a grant funded by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We do receive some donations from the tree giveaway that we use for educational outreach. Our biggest challenges and obstacles, well, we have 5 elected volunteers and 3 staff members. We have continued to do above and beyond effort in soil and water conservation. We have also discussed possibly focusing on an urban mobile irrigation lab, which will help conserve water in commercial and residential areas and areas that are not considered rural. This will most likely bring a great return for the money spent. We ask that we do receive support from our local bodies in maintaining our staff and the funding for 1 employee. And thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman and delegation members.
Members, do you have any questions for the chair? Okay, thank you very much. We'll hear next from Skip Burner, Vice Chair of the Harris Chain of Lakes Restoration Council. He will be our last presenter here this evening.
All members of the delegation for having this meeting. We certainly need to be finished. First of all, is everybody familiar with our legislative purposes? So I'll skip over that. I'll try to be brief, but I haven't played a clock, right?
We haven't it includes you, but it includes others.
First off, let me talk about the council itself. We were created in 2001. As a matter of fact, September 11th, we presented ourselves to St. John's Water Management District Board of Directors during the horrible crashes of planes and terrorists today. The mission of the council is to maximize successful restoration of the Harris Chain of Lakes by ensuring sensible efforts to restore clean water quality, sound environmental policy, ecological diversity, and economic stability now and into the future. Specifically, to keep the citizens of Florida first while performing their fiduciary responsibility and do so with great urgency. To recommend lasting and viable solutions to the legislature for appropriation of funds and resources. To recommend projects that will be selected based on the ability to achieve restoration goals, sound science, and prudent restoration philosophy. To restore the Harris Chain of Lakes water quality to nothing less than pristine is our goal and our mission. To develop a program for improvement of fish and wildlife habitat and natural systems in the Harris Chain of Lakes. To propose methods of contaminated sediment removal control nutrient loading to our lakes, to evaluate and identify areas of human health concerns resulting from the deterioration of our lakes, to recommend and develop projects that substantially improve the economic benefit to local communities. This is from our first report to the legislature. We were, this report was November 21st, 2001. And we were still in a stage of organization at that period. So we were created by the legislature after years of degradation of the lakes. Lake Griffin was in horrible shape with the entire Irish chain had been on the downward spiral. A couple of legislators created a council called the Lake Griffin Task Force. The Lake Griffin Task Force was made up of agencies. I was the only member that was not a member of the agency. And we discussed a lot of proposals, and at the end, we really didn't get much accomplished. We spent probably a couple of years doing that. It gave us some real background, some real understanding of how things work. Subsequently, in 2000, members of the legislative delegation created the Harris County Lakes Restoration Council for a statute. The public began expressing concern over declining water quality, aquatic vegetation, and fish populations excuse me, in the Harris County Lakes as early as 1950. Even following many years of declining habitat and fish population, the estimated annual 1990 value of a single fish species, the black crappie, speckled perch, on Lake Griffin alone was about $3 million. These figures come from fishing game. By the year 2000, just 10 years later, the value of the black crappie fishery had declined to about $300,000, a 90% decline. Coupled with the loss of largemouth bass fishery on the Harris County Lakes, local communities continue to lose millions of fishing dollars annually. Declining water quality, fish kills, bird and alligator deaths, the emergence of a toxic algae are also causing additional millions of dollars of losses within the tourist, recreational boating, and real estate industry. This came from 2001. On September 6, 2001, the Harris County Lake Restoration Council began meeting to discuss issues related to the health of the lakes and the viability of possible restoration projects. Specific discussions were held regarding the viability of St. John River Waterman District flowways and Lake Apopka and Lake Griffin. Other issues discussed included proposed total maximum daily loads, DMDLs, projects for improving water quality, sediment removal, improved recreational boating access, stormwater control, and restoration of fisheries. A finding of these discussions was that this scientific disagreement regarding the potential success of ongoing restoration projects. Information provided by qualified members of the scientific community, while largely in agreement on many issues, have important disagreements regarding the effects of nutrient control, marsh flowways, and water quality in Harris County Lakes. The conflicts not only raise uncertainty regarding the success of current restoration projects, but raise uncertainty on the amount of time required before measurable objectives are realized. Time estimates range from decades to hundreds of years. The Harris County Lake Restoration Council will need time to determine which restoration projects or combinations of projects offer the best chance of success. The Council also acknowledges that specific attention will have to be paid for the development of short-term and long-term projects with an eye on the return of the investment for specific restoration projects. The council will therefore carefully examine short-term projects that can provide immediate economic benefit to local communities. And that was our mission, and that was our charge, and that's where we started. Come a long way. And with that long way came partnerships with Lake County Water Authority, St. John's, Fish and Wildlife. You know, we received money from our legislative delegation through community budget requests. We stocked fish, we stocked bass. Our bass stocking efforts went from virtually no bass in the late 90s, early 2000s. We went out on the lake and they did electric shocks to see how many bass we come up with. In half a day, we brought two to the surface. Both of them were sub-sized. There was no bass. There wasn't a bass in my canal. Today, we brought back the bass fishery. In 2008, we were declared as the #5 destination in the world for bass fishing. You got to remember, in 2000 we didn't have any bass. So our stocking project, in partnership with Lake County Water Authority, County Commission, and the Legislature, and our legislative delegation, brought in millions of dollars in this community, and fast. We turned this around very quickly. Flowway project. You know, as Mike alluded to, that sometimes you fight with your brother. And we've had some major disagreements with our brother. But we've worked it out. We had the Flowway project after a lot of data sets were transferred on Lake Griffin. We convinced the Water Management District that it really wasn't working. And they shut it down. That was a major help. You got to remember what we were dealing with here. When we came into being, we had alligators dying everywhere. It was on the front page of newspapers all over the country. We had no fish. We had a toxic algae bloom that was 95% of the biomass of the lake. It's Lake Griffin. Primarily microcystis and cylindros, bromopsis, racehorsii. Rolls right off the tongue. But through the partnership of the Harris J. Lake Restoration Council, Lake County Water Authority, St. John's, we were able to get data sets and experts that were funded by Lake County Water Authority and the Harris J. Lake Restoration Council to bring people from other parts of the country that actually had studied this thing and actually gave us important protocols in the testing of algae. We've done a lot of things here. We've come a long way. The water quality on Lake Griffin has improved dramatically. We have a couple of lakes that need a little more work. No question about it. We've done some bass stocking. We need to continue that program. You know, that funding comes from the legislature. Some of the problems that we have with the Harris J. Council, I'll be brief, is that we need to maintain our independence. We evaluate projects. Nobody likes Big Brother looking over the shoulder, and that's what we're perceived as. We've had some problems with that. We need to maintain independence. We need to have our own budget. This year, our budget, I supplied a budget to you. You can read it from St. John's. It's not really clear. It's varied tremendously over the years. Lake County Water Authority has been a big contributor to our budget. The economic downturn has changed that. They're still providing some funding, but we need to maintain independence. We need to have a staff member that does a little more for us. We need to have our own independent individual that's doing our report to the legislature that we can pay. We need to have somebody that takes our minutes, that we can pay. Acts as a secretary as well. We had, up until recently, we had money to do that. Because of the economic downturn, we do not. Lake County Water Authority was funding us $40,000 a year. It's down to $5,000. The charge by our legislation is that St. John's provide the funding for us, for staffing and expenses. They at one point that, I believe, provided $10,000. Was supplemented by the $40,000 at St. John's. We've never spent more than $25,000 in always returned the money, the excess money back to the Lake County Water Authority. We're very frugal, but we need to have our independence. You know, when you're looking over somebody's shoulder and they have an agenda, they certainly want you to take their agenda. That's not necessarily the case with the Harris County Council. Harris County Council, we are independent, and we get an independent evaluation of every project that we're asked to do. The Lake County Water Authority has come to us numerous times, and we've been able to provide some oversight and some helpful information to them on numerous projects. We've done the same for St. John's and Fish and Wildlife. The NERF project, we looked at that for St. John's. We have our makeup of our council is designated by the legislature, of course, professionals, engineers, biologists, PhDs, medical doctors. So, we're well staffed in that regard. So we need some funding to maintain our independence. Very important to us. We're up for elections this year. Again, every 2 years we elect new people to represent us. I've been fortunate to be amongst those people for the last, since our existence. So, at any rate, if you can help us at all, I would appreciate some funding, some, direct conversations. I'm always available. If there's any questions. One other thing I'd like to mention. Unfortunately, we've had, for years since our inception, we've had Lake Watch as a real partner. Lake Watch has been a member of our technical advisory group, as is Mike Perry. And Lake Watch has provided a lot of insight and a lot of help. I mean, we depend on Lake Watch for water quality data and for comparisons in different places in the state. They have a data set that's incredible. We lost, Lake Watch also has taken a major cut in funding. Canfield is no longer with us. I wish we could convince them to come back. We need a limnologist. If you can help us in that regard, that'd be great. I'd love to see Canfield do that. It's been invaluable to us.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney. Let me see if we have questions for you from the members of the delegation here. I would like to ask you a question. Right now, you're set up to have administrative support provided by St. John's, correct?
That's correct.
Would it make sense to have that administrative support provided by the Lake County Water Authority since they, like you, were more closely at home, or is that?
Well, according to our legislation, it's designated to a state agency, which is St. John's. Your Lake County Water Authority is not a state agency. It'd be hard to transfer money, from the DEP. When we make a budget request for something, it has to go to a state agency. And so, I imagine it could be done. the administrative support that the Lake County Water Authority, has been, like Perry, has been an outstanding partner, and, you know, anytime that he can provide some type of help for us, financial help or whatever, you know, he's been able to do that.
The reason why I asked the question is that in your written submission, you were very candid in the written submission about some of the problems, that apparently things were better in the beginning than they are now.
Yes.
And sort of, to paraphrase, the council feels more like a stepchild in the family of the St. John's, if you will. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I was just thinking, well, the interests of the Lake County Water Authority with respect to Harris and Champ Lakes restoration and your council's interests are aligned. So having the administrative support would probably take away some of that antipathy, if there is such, in that relationship now with St. John's, while still allowing you to fulfill your advisory function to the St. John and to the Water Authority and others.
That would be certainly acceptable to me.
Just throwing it out there for you to
Well, I thought about it, and I thank you, Representative Metz, because I have thought about it, and it seems like a solution. I truly don't know how that would work, you know, according to our legislation.
Our predecessors wrote it, so it's now up to us to make sure it still works. Okay, any other questions of Mr. Byrne? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. That concludes the formal presentations, members. Now we're going to have a chance to have individual member comments and or discussion among the members now. We'll close out with public input. Does anyone want to comment on anything we've heard today? Matt? I think it's in your comments, especially on springs protection. I know you're working on something for the 14th session.
Okay, you're right, Mr. Chairman. We're deeply engaged in the springs protection legislation. Governor Scott has recognized the need for funding there in his proposed budget. Senator Simmons, Senator Dean, Senator Montford, Senator Simpson, and myself have come up with a beginning point. How many of y'all have read that legislation that's being proposed for the springs? One person might has. Okay, a few of you. Let me caution everyone that document today is just the beginning point for discussion. We know there are going to be significant changes to it. We just don't know what those changes are going to be. I think if there's any real nugget to take home with today is the satisfaction that the legislature is definitely aware of the need for water. This is not a new awareness on our part. It's just that finally now it looks like we're going to have some money that we can be discretionary with and put an appropriate amount of money toward the solution. It's not going to be solved overnight. These problems did not develop overnight. But I can assure you that the legislature and the governor both are acutely aware of the needs, and we're going to do everything we can to make good public policy and do it in a fiscally responsible way. One thing that we definitely need is the flexibility to allocate the funds in areas that we deem appropriate at that time. And without beating around the bush, the proposed constitutional amendment that takes the documentary stamp tax and requires the legislature to spend a certain percentage of that tax on environmental purposes, conservation lands, or whatever it might be, I'm not familiar with the thing, is a very, very serious step in the wrong direction. Because 5 years ago, when we were facing the major revenue decrease that we faced, we had the flexibility then to move funds around from here and there because the Constitution doesn't tie our hands. But if that amendment is passed, it will tie our hands. So the question, if you're in favor of that amendment, here's the question you need to ask down the road. Which taxes do we want the legislature to increase so that they can continue to fund education and health care? Or which health care programs and which educational programs do you want us to decrease because we don't have the money due to the constitutional requirement that we spend it on environmental stuff? That's the predicament that we'll be faced with. And please, you either raise the taxes or you cut the spending. And that's what we had to do 5 years ago. We've worked our way out of the hole now. So with that, we're encouraged by some of the work that we have seen in Lake Apopka. We're encouraged by some work that is beginning in Silver Springs. We're encouraged by work that's just a lot of encouragement that's going on right now. Some of it is in the preliminary stages. Skip, you talked about the removal of the muffler in Lake Apopka. We've got some hope for there, but it's not anything that is proven yet. Dr. Canfield was very helpful in guiding us there as well. So we're working on it, and the springs are the most valuable asset that we have to take care of. We've got to look both at the quality of water as well as the quantity of water.
Thank you, Senator Davis.
I would just say thank you to all that came and presented, and to be able to get 3 hours. I've learned a lot. I still have a lot of questions. I have resort through some of this material, but I do appreciate you all coming, and I appreciate you holding this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just mention, taking off of what Senator Hayes said, in the 2014 legislative session, I think we're going to see more attention focused on water issues. And from the House perspective, Senator Hayes was discussing the Senate perspective, and I had a chance to speak with our incoming speaker about this just recently, and he's very well connected to the water issues himself from his prior service on the committees. Steve Crisipoli, representative from Brevard County, who was our designated speaker beginning in November. He is very much aware of the importance of the water issues. He doesn't think we're going to have this one big massive bill this session that will solve it once and for all. He's very wise to know that it's far too complex of a problem to try to solve with one bill in one session. So he thinks we're going to be having this issue in front of us for a number of years to come as we try to work through the particulars of it. But one of the things that he was encouraged about is the fact that we do have extra money in the budget compared to prior years, and we can start looking at these water projects that haven't been funded that could make a difference in both water quality and quantity. So that's very encouraging that we have the ability to actually do something positive this session and then in future sessions as well, while looking at the overall policy in the long term, perhaps rewrite of that policy as we face the challenges of the future. So tonight's workshop was not intended to solve all these problems. It was intended to give us a chance to come together, hear the information from our community about how these issues affect our local community, what we're doing with the local focus of these issues in terms of the agencies involved, and seeing how they work together and what the problems are that we might be able to solve. So that was our purpose for being here. I think we accomplished that. And I'd like to know, does anyone have a burning desire to provide public input to this delegation right now? Ms. Weisstreck, please come forward, and if you would complete a public appearance form before you leave, Jennifer will give that to you. And while you're coming up, I want to introduce my staff. Jennifer Wiley, would you please stand? Members, Jennifer did the work on getting these books together for you with all the materials, so I appreciate her good work there. And my legislative aide, Sarah Pennington, is in the back. She also is very helpful. So I want the folks here to know if they need to see me or provide public input, not tonight, but on another occasion, please feel free to contact the office, and one of those ladies will be happy to help you with an appointment. So, Ms. Weisstreck, you're recognized, and thank you for being here. And thank you for coming into my office to speak about these issues before.
My name is Linda Weisstreck, and I'm from Leesburg. And I'd like to thank Senator Davis for working on that springs bill, because that not only will help protect the springs, but if those sewer lines are put in and all that sewage water is sent to the utilities, that would be more reclaimed water, which the Central Florida Water Initiative needs. So you're doing, that's a twofer, funding that bill.
You're right. The challenge is finding the sweet connecting spot for it and getting that right balance.
Exactly. I'd also like to mention that just yesterday, St. John's put on their website that they had a grant, so they're going to be doing some cost sharing and providing 30% match to groups like our Soil and Water Conservation District, for instance, and our MIL labs that might apply for that grant to help. Because currently, we have an MIL lab that runs around all over Osceola, Orange, and Lake County, and Sumter, and Marion. One lab, funded by FX. But when they go see a farmer and point out all the things he could do to improve his irrigation, that often is the end of it, because NRCS will provide 50% federal dollars for that new irrigation equipment, but there's no match. And if it's a low-income farmer, he can't afford the other 50%. But if St. John's will put in another 30, that's 80%. We're getting closer to what the farmer or the grower might actually be able to afford to update his irrigation equipment. And they point out that agriculture is still the #1 water user in the state of Florida, #1. And I'd also like to mention that there are 11 mobile irrigation labs in the state. 4 of them are for urban, not just ag. We do not have any in the Central Florida Water Initiative that are working on urban irrigation solutions and small package plants, making them more efficient. The only mobile irrigation lab that St. John's is contracting with, according to their staff email today, works on wells. He does not work on irrigation. So we need, in the Central Florida Water Initiative, a mobile irrigation lab for urban use to help get golf courses to use less water and to get the big developments to become more efficient with their irrigation, and also help the smaller utilities to find out where all the leaks are and things like that. That's what they do up in Duval County, Jacksonville, with their mobile irrigation lab is urban. We need one in the Central Florida Water Initiative, so I don't know how we're going to get the funding for that, but because ag won't fund it. It's not an ag thing, so it's going to have to be from the utilities. The utilities used to fund it, OUC used to fund it, but they dropped all their funding. No money for that, so they dropped it. And last, I've researched all the water districts in the last couple of days on their websites and found out that St. Swiftland is the best in the state for per capita for water conservation. 111 gallons per person. St. John's Water Management District, for our 18 counties, 144 gallons per person. That's a difference of 33 gallons per person per district. So we need to start looking at or communicating better between the water districts and start doing what they're doing to help get our conservation started in this county. If you might notice, they didn't even mention conservation tonight, but that should be #1 priority. It's much more money efficient, it's half the cost of these alternative water supplies. And in my opinion, we need to do more water conservation first as an alternative water supply. And all these other very expensive ARS, and everything else, brackish wells, all those are very high-end, expensive projects. Water conservation is dirt cheap in comparison. And then maybe we could not have to pull 150 million gallons of water a day from St. John's, which wasn't mentioned tonight, but it's in your plans on the internet. Also, 30 million gallons a day from the Ocala, which is also on the website, but was not mentioned tonight.
Ms. Vice, I want to make sure we allow time for anyone else that might want to present. So thank you very much. And Senator Hayes did ask you if you knew the cost of the mobile irrigation lab for the urban, for the Central Florida Water Initiative. You just answer that.
No, I don't. I'm
Okay.
afraid I don't.
Thank you for your presentation, then. Is there anyone else that wants to come forward and address the delegation before we conclude tonight? Okay, we'll see none. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and spending this time with us. And without any further business to come before the Lake County Legislative Delegation, Representative O'Toole moves that we rise. That's Tallahassee talk where we stand adjourned.